Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop chasing, stop overthinking, stop pouring all your energy into him, suddenly he starts acting differently? The calls come more often, the texts get longer, and you can almost feel his panic when he realizes you're no longer hanging on his every word. It's not magic, it's human psychology. When you act like he doesn't matter, you flip the script. You become unpredictable. And unpredictability is powerful because it creates curiosity and tension, the very things that ignite attraction. The truth is, people value what feels rare. When your energy isn't freely available, it forces him to step back and question whether he ever really had you in the first place. It challenges his ego, triggers his desire to pursue, and makes him feel the void you've left. You're no longer predictable, and that mystery drives him wild. This isn't about playing games, it's about shifting the focus back to you. The moment you do, he'll feel it. He'll lose his sense of control. And in that space of uncertainty, he'll either rise to meet you, or you'll realize you were never meant to wait for him at all. Have you ever noticed how people seem to wake up to your value the moment you stop trying so hard to prove it? It's almost like the second you step back and take your energy with you, they suddenly realize what they've been taking for granted all this time. You see, when you make someone the center of your world, when every decision, every thought, every emotion revolves around them, they don't even have to try. They get used to it. They assume your presence is guaranteed. And when something feels guaranteed, we stop valuing it. It's human nature. But the moment you stop showing up in all the ways you used to, something shifts. When you stop texting first, when you stop rearranging your plans to fit theirs, when you stop waiting for their crumbs of attention, suddenly there's a space where your energy used to be. And that space is loud. It's louder than any words you could ever say, because people don't notice your worth when you're in their face giving everything. They notice it in your absence. This isn't about playing games or pretending not to care. It's about realizing that your presence is not a free, unlimited resource. Your time, your love, your attention, they are valuable. And when you treat them as valuable, other people start treating them that way too. You're not punishing anyone, you're simply reclaiming your energy for yourself. You're creating a world where their validation isn't the thing holding you together anymore. And that's where it gets interesting. The moment he feels that shift, when he senses that you're no longer orbiting around him, his brain goes into overdrive. Wait, why isn't she chasing? Why isn't she texting? Why isn't she fighting for this anymore? That scarcity makes him realize that your attention was never owed to him. It was a gift he didn't fully appreciate while he was busy assuming it would always be there. What most people don't understand is how magnetic this shift really is. When you act like he doesn't matter, not in a bitter, resentful way, but from a place of calm confidence, you're no longer trying to force him to see your worth. And that's the paradox. When you stop trying to prove how much you care, he starts wondering if you care at all. That uncertainty, it drives him crazy, because for the first time, he's the one in the position of wanting more. Now, this is the one part where you actually start. Think about it. When someone is always available, always ready to pour into you, no matter how you treat them, you stop questioning whether you deserve it. You take it as a given. But when that same person steps back and focuses on themselves, you can't help but wonder, what's changed? Did I lose them? Did I push them too far? Have they moved on? That's when the panic sets in. That's when he starts to feel what you've been feeling all along. And here's what's beautiful about this shift. It's not just about making him chase you. It's about you chasing you. It's about filling your own life with so much joy, purpose, and love that anyone who isn't matching your energy simply can't keep up. You stop waiting for his attention because you realize you don't need it to feel whole. And ironically, that's when he starts trying to give it. The hardest part is letting go enough to create that space, because parts of you wants to hold on, to keep showing up in hopes that he'll finally get it. But holding on doesn't teach him anything. It just reinforces the idea that no matter how he shows up or doesn't, you'll still be there. Letting go, even just a little, creates a vacuum. And that vacuum is where he has to decide, does he step up or does he let you walk away? Here's the thing. The man who really values you won't let you slip through his fingers. Now, I know a lot of people who doesn't have a sense of humor himself. Here's the thing. The man who really values you won't let you slip through his fingers. Now, I know a lot of people who doesn't have a sense of humor himself. Here's the thing. The man who really values you won't let you slip through his fingers. If he doesn't wake up to your worth when you pull back, it's not because you weren't enough. It's because he wasn't ready to meet you where you are. And that's not your loss. That's the universe making room for someone who will value you without needing to lose you first. So stop proving. Stop chasing. Stop giving someone the kind of access to your heart that they haven't earned. The moment you reclaim that energy for yourself is the moment everything changes. Not just for him, but for you. And the moment you reclaim that energy for yourself is the moment everything changes, not just for him, but for you. And the moment you reclaim that energy for yourself is the moment everything changes, not just for him, but for everyone, because because when you act like he doesn't matter, that's when he realizes you always did. You know what's fascinating? The moment you stop making someone the center of your emotional universe, everything changes. It's like flipping a switch they didn't even know existed. Suddenly, the balance of power shifts. Not because you're playing games or trying to manipulate them, but because you're finally reclaiming your energy. And let me tell you, that shift is electric. When someone thinks they have you, completely and unquestionably, they stop trying. It's human nature. They settle into the comfort of believing they've already won. They don't wake up wondering about you. They don't overthink your silence. And they don't feel that little jolt of fear at the thought of losing you. But the second you stop overgiving, stop over-texting, stop over-analyzing, and simply pull back to focus on you, the dynamic between you two transforms. He starts noticing your absence in places where he used to take your presence for granted. In most contexts, that means this is what they do. You stop over-giving. Stop over-texting. You stop over-analyzing. And simply pull back to focus on you. The dynamic between you two transforms. He starts noticing your absence and potentially your unrequited opinion. This isn't about punishing him or acting cold. It's about energetically stepping out of the space where you've been pouring your time and effort. And when you do, he feels it. He feels the vacuum you leave behind, even if he can't articulate it. Suddenly, he's not so sure where he stands with you. He's no longer confident about the role he plays in your life. That certainty he felt starts to crack, and in its place comes curiosity and then anxiety. It's in that moment he starts asking himself questions he never had to before. Why isn't she reacting the way she used to? Why doesn't she seem bothered anymore? Has she moved on? Has someone else caught her attention? Those questions don't just pop into his mind. They consume him. Because here's the truth. When you act like he doesn't matter, it doesn't mean he actually doesn't matter. He he really means he really doesn't matter. He doesn't mean he actually doesn't. It means you're no longer handing him your power on a silver platter. You're no longer giving him the emotional monopoly over your happiness. And that is what triggers him to wake up. Men aren't wired to chase what they're certain they already own. They're wired to chase what feels slightly out of reach, slightly unpredictable. When you've always been available, responsive, and emotionally invested, when your world has revolved around him, there's no tension, there's no mystery. And without that mystery, his mind doesn't need to work for you. But the second you let go and redirect all that energy back into your own life, he feels it in ways he can't even explain. You'll see it in the small shifts. He'll start texting first. He'll want to know what you're doing, who you're with, what's changed. He'll try to regain the emotional certainty he lost when you stopped handing it to him so freely. And at first, he might even test you to see if this new version of you is real. He might throw out bait to see if you'll bite, to see if you'll fall back into the pattern of putting him first again. But the power here isn't in pretending not to care. It's in actually doing the work to not need his validation anymore. It's about living your life in such a way that whether he notices or not, you're good. That's the energy that's magnetic. It's not fake indifference, it's real self-sufficiency. And trust me, he can tell the difference. When you let go of the need for him to fill your emotional gaps, he feels the shift, even if you don't say a word. That silence speaks volumes. It whispers to him that you've stopped waiting, that you've stopped caring in the same way you used to. And for a man who thought he had you wrapped around his finger, that realization is earth-shattering. This is why the shift of power is so important. Not so you can dominate or control him, but so you can restore balance in the connection. So you can stop over-functioning for someone who's been under-functioning for far too long. The truth is, the one who cares less isn't the one with the power. It's the one who doesn't need the other person to feel whole. And here's what's really interesting. When you stop chasing him emotionally, when you stop trying to fix or force things, he suddenly has the space to chase you, to think about you, to miss you, to wonder if he's losing you. And often, that's when he starts putting in effort he should have been giving all along. The question is, are you willing to step back long enough to let that happen? Are you willing to detach your sense of worth from whether or not he notices? He needs you. And when you want to do that, are you willing to detach your sense of worth from whether or not he notices? And when you want to do that, are you willing to detach your sense of worth from whether or not he notices? And when you want to do that, are you willing to detach your sense of worth from whether or not, because if you are, you'll find yourself in a position where you're no longer asking, does he want me? But instead asking, do I even want him? That's the real power. It's not about ignoring him. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about the energy you bring to the situation. You see, energy speaks louder than words ever will. You can say, I'm over it all you want, but if your actions, your tone, and your attention still revolve around him, he'll feel that. He'll know he still has a hold on you. But the moment you genuinely shift your energy, everything changes. When you stop pouring so much of yourself into him, when you stop overthinking his every word, stop waiting on his next message, stop reading between the lines of his behavior, he feels it. It's subtle at first. He might not even understand why something feels different, but he'll notice. There's a gap where your attention used to be, a quiet where he once heard the noise of your emotional investment. That's when curiosity starts to creep in. He begins to wonder, why does it feel like she's pulled back? Why isn't she reacting the way she used to? Did something change? This isn't about playing games. It's not about manipulating someone into chasing you. It's about shifting the dynamic by genuinely pulling your energy back to yourself. When your mindset changes from "I hope he likes me" to "I'm focusing on my own peace and he's free to meet me there or not," you send out a very different signal. That shift is magnetic because it's rooted in self-respect. Think about it. When someone senses that you need them to validate your worth, they hold all the cards. They get to decide when to give you crumbs of attention and when to withhold it. But when you step back and no longer depend on their validation, they lose that power. Suddenly, you're no longer anxiously waiting for them to text back. You're not seeking their approval. You're living. You're growing. And that's when they begin to feel the absence of your energy. This absence isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet. It's calm. It's the kind of detachment that says, "I'm fine with or without you." And that calmness is what unnerves them. They're used to being able to push your buttons. They're used to knowing they can get a reaction. The moment you stop giving them that emotional payoff, they're left with their own thoughts. And those thoughts can be deafening. It's not about faking indifference. It's about reaching a place where you truly realize your own worth, where you're no longer willing to hand over your emotional energy to someone who hasn't earned it. And that's when everything flips. That's when he starts questioning himself. Did I lose her? Was she ever as invested as I thought? Why don't I feel her chasing anymore? That uncertainty plants a seed in his mind, and that seed grows into desire. Because here's the truth. People are drawn to what they feel they can't completely have. When you make someone your whole world, they feel that, and it takes away the mystery. But when you reclaim your time, your energy, and your focus, you reintroduce unpredictability. You become someone he can't quite figure out. He doesn't know if you're still there waiting or if you've already moved on. That question alone is powerful enough to make him restless. And you'll know you're doing it right when you're not even thinking about whether he notices. Because the moment you stop performing detachment and actually start living it, everything shifts. It's no longer about what he thinks or feels. It's about what you feel. And ironically, that's when he's most likely to start chasing. If you want to create that magnetic pull, don't try harder to impress him. Don't work overtime to show him what he's missing. Instead, redirect your focus inward. Build a life so rich and fulfilling that his presence becomes a bonus, not a necessity. That's the energy that makes someone stop in their tracks and think, wait, what happened? Why does it feel like I'm no longer the center of her attention? The truth is, when you stop handing someone the power to dictate your happiness, you take back control of your story. And in doing so, you make them realize the one thing they never considered before. They could actually lose you, because nothing messes with someone's mind more than realizing the person who once cared so deeply might not care anymore. There's something fascinating about what happens when you stop giving someone the reaction they expect. For so long, he's been used to the comfort of knowing where he stands with you. He's been used to the texts that reassure him, the calls that check in on him, the little gestures that say, I'm still here, you're still important to me, you still have me. And because of that, he's never had to question his place in your life. He's never had to wonder if he's losing you because your attention has been consistent, your care has been predictable, and your emotions have been transparent. But the moment you take that away, the moment you stop pouring your energy into him, it does something very interesting. It shakes his ego. He starts to realize that he's no longer the center of your universe. And here's the thing about ego, it doesn't like to be ignored. He's going to like to be ignored. His ego has been fed every time you reached out first, every time you double-checked on him, every time you gave him space, but still waited in the background just in case he needed you. But now, when you act like he doesn't matter, his ego starts asking questions it's never had to ask before. Why isn't she reacting? Why doesn't she care anymore? Has she moved on? At first, he might try to convince himself it doesn't bother him. He might tell himself that you're just being dramatic, or you'll come back around eventually because that's what you've always done. But as time passes and you remain steady in your energy, not cold, not angry, just detached, he starts to feel the weight of your absence. It's no longer about whether he misses you emotionally. It's about whether his ego can handle the fact that he's no longer sure if he even has access to you anymore. So you have something to show him. You have contact with him. You have connection. And that's where the pain resides. It's a matter of space, not distance. His body is pulled from yours, so you have to be present for him as much as he has to be present for you anymore. When someone thinks they can have you at any time, they don't feel urgency. They don't feel the need to step up because in their mind, you're already theirs. But the moment that certainty disappears, the dynamic shifts. Suddenly, he's the one overanalyzing. He's the one scrolling back through conversations, wondering if he missed a sign. He's the one asking himself, did I mess this up? Have I pushed her too far? This is not about playing games. This is not about pretending you don't care while secretly waiting for him to notice. It's about genuinely taking back your energy and focusing it on yourself. Because when you do that, something powerful happens. You break the pattern. You stop feeding the dynamic that kept him comfortable and start creating one where he has to work for your attention, not the other way around. And here's what's so beautiful about that shift. The right man will feel compelled to step up. If he truly values you, your indifference won't push him away, it will wake him up. It will remind him that your attention isn't something to be taken for granted. It will make him realize that if he wants to keep a place in your life, he's going to have to earn it. But if he doesn't step up, if your silence, your calm detachment doesn't shake him enough to make him act, that's your answer right there. You'll know that this was never about love, it was about his comfort. And you deserve so much more than being someone's emotional safety net. The man who really cares about you will feel that shift in energy like an earthquake. He'll notice when you're no longer texting just to check in. He'll notice when you're not there, liking every post or sending little updates about your day. He'll notice because the part of him that's used to being validated by you will suddenly feel empty without it. That emptiness is where his ego starts to lose its grip. And as he sits with that discomfort, as he starts to realize he might actually be losing you, the roles reverse. He's no longer the one holding all the cards. You are, because you've taken the power back by showing that your happiness doesn't depend on him. You're not waiting for his crumbs anymore. You're focused on building a life so full that whether or not he fits into it is no longer the question. The question becomes, does he deserve to? That's when he loses his mind. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you've become someone who's hard to forget. And that's exactly where your power lies. So many people don't realize how much power they're giving away when they make someone else the center of their world. When every thought is about him, when every action is based on what he might think, when your happiness rises and falls on whether he texted you back, that's when you lose yourself. That's when you're no longer living for you. And the truth is, that energy is felt. It's heavy. It's suffocating. No one wants to feel like they're carrying someone else's sense of worth on their shoulders. But the moment you shift your focus, everything changes. The moment you say, I'm not going to make you my emotional center. I'm going to pour into myself. I'm going to live my life like I'm the prize because I am. That's when the energy begins to shift. It's subtle at first. You're not being cold. You're not playing games. You're just taking your focus off him. And when you do that, he feels it. Suddenly, you're not hanging on his every word. You're not available for every call. You're not dropping your plans the second he says, hey, let's hang out. You're busy, not because you're pretending to be, but because you actually are. When you reclaim that energy, he starts to notice. He starts to realize that the gravitational pull he had over you is weakening, and it confuses him. It rattles him because he didn't even realize how much he depended on the validation you were constantly giving. When you're always there, always responding, always saying yes, he gets comfortable. He starts to believe that no matter what he does, you'll still be there. But when you stop, when you redirect your energy, it creates a gap. And that gap gets his attention. This isn't about making him jealous or trying to manipulate him. It's about you stepping back into your own life. When you focus on your growth, your goals, your friendships, your passions, you radiate a different kind of confidence. It's not loud or showy. It's quiet, but it's powerful. You start to look less like someone waiting for a man to validate her and more like someone who's already whole. That kind of energy is magnetic. It makes him stop and think, what's changed? Why doesn't she seem to need me anymore? Who's capturing her attention now? Here's the irony. The less you need his attention, the more he wants to give it. Because people are naturally drawn to what feels scarce, what feels valuable, what feels like it could slip away. And when you stop showing up in his life like you're waiting for a sign to matter to him, he's forced to confront what life feels like without your presence. Think about this. When you're obsessed with him, you're not mysterious. You're predictable. He knows you'll answer. He knows you'll cancel your plans. He knows you'll be there. But when you shift that focus back to you, suddenly he doesn't know what to expect. And that unpredictability sparks curiosity. It sparks desire. He starts to wonder, what's going on in her world? Why is she so calm? Why isn't she trying to get my attention? That's when the dynamic flips. That's when he starts chasing. But here's the most important part. You're not doing this for him. You're doing it for you. You're not pretending to be busy. You are busy. You're not pretending to be fulfilled. You're actually building a life that fulfills you with or without him in it. That's the key. When you genuinely invest in yourself, when you truly focus on your happiness, you don't just become more attractive to him, you become more attractive to yourself. You start to realize how much you were shrinking before, how much you were overgiving, and how much more peace there is when your happiness isn't dependent on another person's behavior. That's when you stop needing the chase, the validation, the constant reassurance, because you're not trying to fill a gap anymore. And ironically, that's what makes you irresistible. That's when he feels the difference. That's when he realizes he's no longer the one in control. And that's when you get to decide if he's even worth your energy anymore. You don't need to punish him. You don't need to prove anything. Just focus on building the kind of life that feels so good you wouldn't trade it for someone who isn't all the way in. When you do that, you stop chasing, and he starts realizing what it feels like to chase you. And the moment he realizes he's no longer the center of your universe, that's the moment he loses his mind. When someone feels like they can predict your every move, the mystery is gone. That sense of curiosity, the spark that pulls people in, it dies when they think they've got you all figured out. And the truth is, attraction doesn't thrive in certainty. It lives in that space where someone is still wondering about you, still curious about what's going on in your mind, still unsure of how much they actually mean to you. And when they start to think they have no power, when you act like he doesn't matter, you're not being cruel or playing some manipulative game. You're breaking a pattern. You're refusing to be predictable anymore. You're not sitting there overanalyzing his texts or waiting for him to decide whether you're worth showing up for. You're shifting your energy away from him, not in anger or resentment, but in quiet confidence. And the moment you do that, he notices. He may not admit it. He may even act like he doesn't care. But deep down, he starts to feel it. He feels the space you've created. He senses the change in your energy. You see, when someone knows they have your attention, no matter what they do, when they can act inconsistently, give you breadcrumbs of effort, and still trust that you'll be there, it kills the urgency for them to step up. But when you pull back and stop giving them that constant reassurance, they're no longer sure. Suddenly, they're left asking questions they've never had to ask before. Why isn't she texting me first anymore? Why doesn't she seem affected? What is she doing instead? Has she moved on? And that uncertainty drives them wild. This isn't about pretending not to care. It's about actually caring less about what he's doing and caring more about what you're doing. It's about reclaiming your time, your focus, and your power. Because when you do, you become someone he can't predict anymore. You're no longer that woman waiting for his attention, waiting for his validation. You're the woman living her life, moving forward, and not asking for permission to do so. The truth is, people are drawn to what they can't quite figure out. When you're predictable, he doesn't have to put in any effort. There's no tension, no excitement. He knows exactly what will happen. But when you become less available, when you stop making him the center of your world, you shake up that dynamic. He's no longer sure if you're sitting by the phone waiting. He's no longer sure if you'll say yes when he finally decides to reach out. And in that uncertainty, you become magnetic. This doesn't mean you're cold or distant. It means you're showing him through your actions that your world doesn't revolve around him. And that's powerful because it makes him realize that your attention is not a given. It's something to be earned. It makes him question whether he's done enough to deserve your time. Think about it. How many times have you bent over backward for someone, thinking that if you just showed them how much you cared, they'd finally see your value? And how many times has that backfired? The reason is simple. Certainty can breed complacency. But when someone feels they're at risk of losing something valuable, they wake up. Acting like he doesn't matter doesn't mean you've stopped loving or caring. It means you've stopped over-investing in someone who isn't meeting you halfway. It means you're no longer trying to prove your worth to someone who should already recognize it. And in that shift, you become unpredictable, not because you're playing a part, but because you've broken free from a dynamic where you were always giving and he was always receiving. It's in that space where he no longer knows if he has you that he starts to chase. He starts to wonder what's on your mind, what you're thinking, and whether he still has a place in your life. He loses his sense of control, and it drives him crazy. In the best way, not because you've manipulated him, but because you've reminded him that you are not his to take for granted. And here's the beautiful part. Whether or not he comes back doesn't even matter anymore. Because by acting like he doesn't matter, you've realigned your life in a way that puts you first. You've stopped outsourcing your happiness to someone else. And in doing that, you've not only created the possibility for him to wake up and step up, you've created the space for someone even better to recognize your value from the start. That's how you take back your power. Not by fighting for their attention, but by becoming so deeply rooted in your own worth that their behavior no longer dictates your peace. Because the moment you act like he doesn't matter is the moment he starts to wonder if he ever truly mattered to you. And that thought will haunt him more than anything else ever could. All right?